I woke up to the sound of my sister's laughter echoing from the hallway, the same shrill, entitled laugh I'd grown up hearing. The smell of fresh coffee and buttered toast drifted up from the kitchen, but I already knew neither of those were for me. In this house, breakfast was a privilege reserved for my sister, Lila the golden child, and I was just the shadow crawling behind her spotlight. "Get up!" Mom's voice tore through the thin wooden door like a whip. "Your sister's room looks like a pigsty, and you're going to clean it now before guests arrive." I rubbed my temples, still sore from last night's lesson. Dad had accidentally backhanded me for speaking while he was watching TV, and my jaw ached every time I moved it. "I have an early shift at the library," I mumbled, loud enough to be heard but soft enough to sound harmless. "Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video?" The door slammed open so hard it rattled on its hinges. Mom stood there holding the iron plugged in, cord dragging across the floor and behind her. Lila leaned against the hallway wall in her silk pajamas, sipping orange juice like royalty. "You have time," Mom sneered, walking in until the iron's heat kissed my skin through my thin t-shirt. "Unless you want me to give you a reason to stay home today." Lila smiled lazily, twirling a strand of her perfectly highlighted hair. "Make her do the closet too, Mom. My shoes got dusty." I bit my lip so hard I tasted blood. My back stiffened as Mom raised the iron slightly higher. "You live here rent-free," she spat. "You earn your spot by scrubbing your sister's filth. Or else maybe it's time you learn how pain works." Dad's voice boomed from downstairs. "Teach her. Trash only learns when it hurts." The next moment blurred. The iron pressed against my lower back, heat searing through fabric, skin, muscle. I screamed, collapsing forward onto the floor, grabbing the sheets like they could somehow hold me together. "Don't you dare get blood on the carpet!" Mom barked as I rolled onto my side, shaking and sobbing. Lila set down her glass, pretending to be concerned, just long enough to twist the knife. "Pathetic," she whispered, kneeling next to me. "You're 24, and you're still just a maid. Maybe if you'd been born smarter, they wouldn't hate you so much." I stared at her through tears, willing myself not to scream. My breathing turned ragged. I wanted to vanish into the walls, into the cracks between the floorboards, anywhere but here. But then Dad stormed upstairs, his beer belly hanging under his faded t-shirt, belt already in hand. "Stop crying," he snapped. "You think the world cares? Clean her room or sleep outside tonight." I pulled myself upright, my back still throbbing with blisters. I tried to stand tall, but my knees buckled under their gaze. Why does she get everything?" My voice came out hoarse, almost broken. "Why do I always have to—" Dad's hand flew across my face, knocking me against the dresser. My cheek burned, but I stayed silent. "That mouth," he growled. "Always running, always ungrateful. You should thank us for keeping you." From the corner of my eye, I saw Lila's grin widen. That was the moment something inside me snapped quietly, silently, like a hairline fracture that no one notices until the whole foundation crumbles. I dragged myself into Lila's room, every step carving fire down my spine, and started picking up her clothes from the floor. My hands shook, but my face was blank. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. And that terrified them more than any words I could have said. For the first time, I stopped reacting. That night, I stood by my small window, staring at the dark street below while my back throbbed with every breath. I traced the blistered skin gently, feeling the ridges where the iron had kissed me. The pain wasn't just on my skin anymore. It was in my bones, in my chest, in every bitter inhale. And as I watched Lila's silhouette through her bedroom window across the hall, laughing on the phone while Mom braided her hair, a strange calm settled over me. I realized something they didn't. This house had never been a home. And soon, I'd make sure they understood what real pain felt like, the kind that burns deeper than skin, the kind you can't soothe with ice or apologies. I started making plans, quietly, meticulously, because next time the burn wouldn't be on my back. The next morning, the blisters on my back had hardened into painful ridges. But I didn't wince when I pulled on my shirt. I didn't groan, didn't make a sound. I'd learned one thing last night: they fed off my reactions. They loved the screams, the tears, the pleading. So I gave them nothing. I walked into the kitchen, silent as stone, and found Lila sitting at the counter, eating pancakes drizzled with maple syrup. Mom hovered nearby, cutting strawberries for her plate like she was some princess, while Dad sat at the table scrolling on his phone, ignoring me entirely. "Look who finally decided to crawl out," Lila mocked, glancing up from her plate. "Didn't think you'd be able to sit after last night." Mom smirked without looking up. "She'll live. Trash always survives. Besides, now maybe she'll finally listen." I poured myself a glass of water, ignoring them, and that was when Dad slammed his palm against the table. "You ignoring your mother now?" His voice boomed across the kitchen. "You think you're better than us? You should thank her for teaching you discipline." I swallowed the water slowly, meeting his glare without a word. For the first time, I saw his expression falter just slightly, but enough to notice. "Don't just stand there," Mom snapped, tossing a rag at me. "Your sister has friends coming over later. Make sure her room and the downstairs bathroom sparkle, and don't screw it up this time." I nodded once, calm, and left without a sound. By noon, I was in Lila's room, folding her designer clothes while she scrolled through her phone on the bed. Every now and then, she'd accidentally kick a shirt onto the floor just to watch me pick it up again. "Don't forget the shoes," she said without looking up. "Mom said she wants them polished before dinner." I looked at her, holding one of her sequined heels in my hand. "You know what I realized?" I said softly. She finally glanced at me, raising an eyebrow. "What, that you're a maid?" "No," I whispered, my tone flat. "That people like you only win because someone like me lets you." Lila frowned, confused, but I turned back to the closet without saying more. My silence was a weapon, and I was sharpening it. That evening, after everyone went to bed, I sat cross-legged on the floor of my tiny room, laptop open in front of me. I had no savings, no inheritance, nothing but my wits. But I had something they didn't think I had: patience. For the next several weeks, I started laying the groundwork. First, I quietly reached out to a friend from college, Maggie, who now worked at a local rehab facility. I asked her to check something for me. Did anyone named Robert or Marlene Foster, my parents, owe outstanding medical bills? Her answer came the next day. "They do. A lot. They're on payment plans for Dad's old back surgery." "Why?" I smiled at my phone, a slow, cold smile they would never see coming. While they continued to mock me and pile chores on my shoulders, I began documenting everything. Every insult, every bruise, every lesson that left me scarred. I started keeping a hidden camera in my pocket, recording their tirades, Dad's drunken rants, Mom's venomous words, even Lila's cruelty, the accidental spilled coffee on my clothes, the deliberate tripping on the stairs. They thought I was still their obedient punching bag, but behind my quiet compliance, I was collecting ammunition. 2 months later, the cracks in their perfect world began to form. It started when I found a thick, official-looking envelope addressed to Dad on the kitchen counter. I didn't open it, I didn't have to. The bold red letters on the front read, "Final Notice." That evening, I casually brought it up at dinner. "So, how's the mortgage?" I asked, voice light, almost playful. Dad's fork clattered against his plate, his face paling instantly. Mom shot me a sharp glare. "Don't you worry about our business," she hissed. "Oh, I'm not worried," I said softly. "I just wondered if Lila knows." Lila blinked, setting down her phone. "Knows what?" "Nothing," I said, smiling faintly as I sipped my water. From that night on, paranoia started eating at them like termites in wood. Dad stopped sleeping. Mom whispered on late-night calls. Lila hovered around them, demanding answers they wouldn't give. I had planted the first seed, and it was growing fast. Weeks later, the real storm began. I discovered that the clinic where I worked part-time had recently signed a contract with a local bank, the same bank that held my parents' mortgage. I didn't hack anything. I didn't steal. But I did make friends with someone in accounting, That's how I learned the truth. They were 3 months away from foreclosure. And I made sure Lila overheard me talking about it softly on the phone, pretending it was an accident. By the next morning, the entire house was chaos. Lila screamed at them for using her college fund to cover bills. Mom yelled at Dad for gambling on just one more scratch ticket. Dad blamed me, of course, because somehow I brought bad luck into this family. I didn't defend myself. I didn't need to. I just watched, silent, as they turned on each other. The final blow came quietly. Remember all those recordings I'd been collecting? I anonymously sent them to a distant relative Mom adored Aunt Clara, the one she'd always tried to impress. A woman who had zero tolerance for abuse and gossip connections stretching through the entire extended family. Within days, whispers started spreading. Within a week, they were no longer invited to neighborhood barbecues. Within 2, Dad lost one of his big clients after word got around about his parenting style. Their golden reputation, the one thing they valued more than money, cracked beyond repair. One evening, I came home late and found them all sitting in the living room, silent, pale, broken. Dad finally spoke, his voice hoarse. We can't pay the next bill." Mom's hands shook as she buried her face in them. Lila sat curled up in the corner, scrolling desperately through her phone, probably texting anyone who'd still answer. I stood in the doorway, my blistered back long-heeled, my voice steady. "I told you," I said softly. "Pain teaches trash faster." And for the first time in my life, they had nothing to say. I woke up that morning with a kind of stillness inside me I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't peace, no. Peace was too soft a word. It was sharper than that, colder, like the quiet after a wildfire when everything is already burned down and nothing can hurt you anymore. The sun streamed through the thin curtains of my room, painting the cracked walls gold, but there was no warmth in it. I sat on the edge of my bed, tying my shoelaces slowly, deliberately, and thought about how far I'd come from the girl who used to beg her parents to love her. That girl died the night Mom pressed a hot iron into my back, and Dad laughed, calling me trash. And today was the day I buried what was left of them too. It began with the hospital. Weeks ago, I found out something none of them knew I knew. Dad had a secret medical file. Not for his back surgery, I already knew about that, but for something much worse. The man who called me useless every day, who mocked me for having nothing of value, had been quietly treated for a degenerative nerve disease. He didn't want anyone to know because it would make him look weak. I didn't expose him. I didn't need to. Instead, I made sure his insurance claim, the one keeping his treatment barely affordable, was quietly flagged for suspicious activity. It wasn't fraud, not technically. I just handed over my collected recordings to the right person in billing. You'd be amazed how fast they stop covering someone when they hear a man drunkenly shouting about scamming the system for free meds. 2 weeks later, Dad's lifeline was cut. Then came Mom. She'd built her entire world on status. Her book club, her gossip circle, her perfect family facade, all of it was her currency. It made her untouchable. So I burned it all. One by one, I slipped pieces of the recordings to people she desperately needed approval from, the women she tried so hard to impress. I made sure they heard every toxic word she'd ever spat at me. "She'll never be more than garbage. If she died tomorrow, at least she wouldn't waste oxygen. No one would ever want her." It spread like wildfire. Within a week, she was blacklisted from the social groups she worshipped. Within 2, they stopped inviting her to charity dinners, and by the end of the month, the woman who used to laugh while my skin blistered under a hot iron couldn't even walk into the local store without whispers following her. Lila was the last. She was harder. Not because I loved her, I didn't, but because she never valued anything enough to lose it. Her clothes? Replaceable. Her friends? Temporary. Her car? A gift, nothing earned. But I finally found her weak spot. Validation. She'd been competing for an exclusive internship at a luxury design firm for months. She bragged about it endlessly, screamed when she got the call back, and posted about it like her life depended on it. So, I sent the firm an anonymous email. Attached were the videos of her mocking disabled kids at a party, calling them pathetic little limps, the videos she didn't know I had. 2 days later, she got the rejection email. Her screams that night were louder than mine had ever been, but no one came to comfort her, not even Mom. That's when the real unraveling began. The bills piled higher. Dad's treatment stopped entirely. Mom's social lifeline shriveled into silence. Lila locked herself in her room for days, refusing to come out. The house that once echoed with their cruel laughter was quiet now, suffocatingly quiet. One night, I walked into the living room to find all 3 of them sitting there together for the first time in weeks. Dad hunched over on the couch, his shoulders slumped like the weight of his own failures was finally crushing him. Mom clutched a mug of cold coffee in both trembling hands. Lila stared blankly at the floor, her mascara streaked across her face. They looked smaller somehow, diminished, fragile. When they heard me enter, they didn't say anything at first, and then Mom whispered, almost too softly to hear, "Why are you doing this to us?" I stopped in the doorway, letting the silence hang between us until it felt heavy enough to choke them. "You taught me this," I said finally, my voice steady, calm. "You taught me that pain is the fastest teacher." Dad's lips parted, but no words came out. Lila's chin trembled, and Mom looked away, her eyes glassy with unshed tears. I took a slow step forward, letting each word land like a hammer. "You burned me. You broke me. You laughed when I bled. You called me trash. And now," I said, leaning closer, "you get to live in the world you built." I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I didn't touch them. I just turned and walked out of the house, closing the door softly behind me. By the end of the month, the foreclosure notice arrived. They were forced to sell the house, the only thing they'd ever truly cared about, for barely half its worth. And when I passed them on the street a few weeks later, I didn't gloat. I didn't even stop. I just walked past as though they were strangers. Because to me, they were. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video?